Our Always Flowers boho style printable papers will be a feature alongside original art created with sprays, markers, pencils, and more. Our first couple of pages will be the focus in today's video and a torn flip section. Welcome to PM Artist Studio. I am Mariah, the M in PM. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, and thank you for watching. Okay, to start this video out, I wanted to, and I have been wanting to use this particular piece of paper for a very long time. This is some of our catch paper. You can even see here I have used a punch to punch out a little bit of flowers. I believe I used on a card a while back, but I have this in my stash here, like right next to my desk, and finally it was the right time to use it. It just so happened that it pretty much fit this particular size, which is a journal page cut down from a spiral bound journal that I have, which is 5.5 by 8.5. So the cut size ended up being 4.25 by 5.5. There are pages that I've taken out because that journal is getting kind of thick, and so it was kind of a win-win. And it's nice and thick watercolor paper. It doesn't always work great for certain things, but I have found that for this purpose, which is just gluing things on top of it, is wonderful. It's nice and sturdy, and I don't mind the texture that is on the page. Now, even though this had a lot of great things going on for it, the catch paper, I still wanted to do some things to it, and obviously, like anything that we do, whether it is using our printables, which you see up in the upper left-hand corner there, we're going to do something to it, whether it's me or P or I. We will be altering it somehow, even our very own printables. And I'm just utilizing one of the printed pages to cover up those bits. I thought I might be able to use it, but it being right there where the spiral binding is going to end up, that's where it's going to punch the holes and everything. It was kind of an awkward place to leave those flowers. So it was better just to go ahead and use some of these papers to start bringing in that element. And was a really nice transition, and is what I'm using for most of the journals, that it's kind of, there's always a bend over or color or something that's going to bring each page to the next page. They're all very different, but there are certain elements, obviously with the paper packet, you know, the set, it's going to do that anyway. And here what you see me doing is using the distress sprays. I think that's picket fence, and then this is a color mix of our own. I sprayed on some of that. You saw me use the big brush to kind of dab it around just to help, you know, not get it so centralized. But I wanted to lighten up some of those areas. And one of the key things that I continually do, and is sort of my style, is the torn paper edges. And one of the reasons that I do that is to soften transitions, or I don't like to have like stark breaks. Sometimes it works, but most of the time for me, I really like that softer torn edge, which I can then transition into a different area, different section, a different page, all of the above. And you see that I'm doing that even with the pink paper that's going to end up being our little flip door. I haven't really figured out exactly what to call it yet, because it's not a pocket. I don't know. I'm still working on that. Utilizing more of the cutoff, the more simple parts of the catch paper. And all that is those same type of sprays. All sorts of different ones, from Mr. Huey's to, I believe we even have Lindsay's sprays on there. A lot of them are Mr. Huey's though. And some of them might even be the Delusions shimmer sprays. I like using those, even though most of mine are kind of clogged up at this point, and probably partially my fault for not storing them properly. And you'll always see me using them, like the spray part, just using it to dab it like I did with the mixed one I did. Now you can see me bringing in another one of the printables. And to kind of refer back to that whole idea of the torn edge and transitioning, I thought this was perfect that those little bits of green went so well with the bits of green that were on that printable paper. But you saw me tearing out one of the lighter green leaves, gluing it there in that same spot where the darker areas that matched that same pattern. And I'll do more work on those later on with more of the pencils and start more detailed work. Right now I'm just trying to figure out, again, the right spot, because I was really liking how the sprayed area in the middle of the main page turned out. So I don't want to cover that up. I'm kind of one of those that, like, if I really like something, I cannot cover it up. So it has to. That's why I probably do a lot of flips and little pockets that will open up and things of that nature, because I don't want to cover anything up that I have done. And utilizing that same idea from the inside of the little flip panel that we did with the leaves, bringing that to the outside there, same thing, and it worked out so nicely that there happened to be those darker spots of purple, and it just lined up. I'd like to say that I planned that out, but no, it was just one of those things, happy accidents. That is much how much of this works out, for me at least. Now with the torn edges, again, kind of going back to that whole idea that, you know, one of the reasons I don't leave them white and bright is that I use them as transition. I use them to create areas of textural transition, and using my markers then to bring in either or highlight certain colors that are in that same section or on that same page. And that's exactly what you saw me doing there with the pink, then fading that in. And that whole area was a torn bit. I don't know if you saw that at the very beginning, but there was a large section that tore off of that very top part. And so I used that to kind of guide me in creating a nice depth and texture for that area. The blendable markers are always a great thing to blend not only the markers but the pencils. I've said that in many of my videos. I use those all the time to blend all sorts of areas, and they work very well on these torn edges. Coming in with the color pencils again, just adding more interest to those little areas. And repetition. Especially when you have these patterns like that, I think that it's very important to create that repetition and flow. Throughout this journal, that's kind of a consistent thing that I've tried to keep in place as well. And that particular leaf pattern does it so well because it has movement and creates repetition. And you'll always see me playing with sizes of patterns. So you can even see here that they're all the same patterns, but I've printed them out at different scales. And even using them right next to one another is a great way to create movement and keep the eye engaged and moving. And I think one of the cool things in what I try to do when I am creating these pattern papers is that they are different, but there are common elements within all of them so that they seem very cohesive when used together. Bringing in a little bit of that purple with the Prismacolors. This might even be some of our Amazon pencils too. I've mixed them all in together. I quite like them both. So if you're interested in that video, we do have that comparison. I really like the pencils. There are some that are better than others, but all in all, I think they, for a price point, are great. Now, something to keep in mind, like even though this is a little flippy door and I'm using the paper there, I know that I'm gonna come back and use Mod Podge, which will seal that paper for one, and it creates a nice plasticky type sealant, so it also then keeps the paper from ripping. So one of the things that you see me doing here is, again, as I said a couple of times already, is finishing up those edges, tying them in, and then making so those torn areas become a new part of this particular spread or page or whatever ripped section that I've done, and now this pattern becomes something new and different. And I use both markers and pencils and blendables and all sorts of things to make those areas happen. You can even see me bringing in, so not only like acrylic markers, but just water-based markers. I use them all, and each one kind of does something different. I was a little unhappy with that particular one, and so there it needed a little fixing with more of the pencil, creating more depth, more flow. And that's really always my goal. And there you go, pretty much finished up. Coming back with a little bit of touch-ups here and there, and trust me, there'll be even more. You'll probably see this panel again. So unfortunately, I did lose the video to the larger leaf pattern parts that you saw there just a moment ago. And now you just see me fiddling with trying to figure out kind of what am I going to do with the little door. I still haven't quite figured that out yet, so stay tuned. That will be in some of the upcoming videos, along with, I think, a sit down and chat to go over the missing videos. And now you see me pulling in some other elements that are a little bit of a teaser for some of the other pages that are coming up in this journal. Again, thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't already, like this video. Leave us a comment. We love those. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and ring that bell. We do this each week. Thank you again for watching.